Okay, would you please introduce yourself?
I'm Gary Nickelson from Fort Worth, Texas, board certified family lawyer. Proud to be.
Well, thank you for doing this interview with us.
You bet.
Gary, when were you board certified?
1984.
That was long after the first class, right?
That's correct. First class in 75.
Okay. Well, what made you decide to get board certified?
Well, I was a solo practitioner, and I did everything back in those days. I got out of law school in 72, and I worked for Atlantic Richfield Oil Company for a year, and I came back here in Fort Worth, 73, 74, started practicing. And in those days, a solo practitioner could be very successful doing sort of everything. You know, doing some misdemeanor criminal work, some workman's comp, some PI, family law, you know, and that's what I did. Like most of the sole proprietors at that time. Specialization was a coming thing, but it was still coming when I got around. And I then decided about 1980 that I looked around and I thought, you know, the only cases that I really like are the family law cases. I don't like the criminals. I don't like the deal with the insurance companies and, you know, all that kind of stuff. And so I said, you know, I think I'll just get board certified in family law, because it was obvious every CLE event you went to that was the coming thing. We were all going to be board certified at some point. And so I went and studied and sat for the exam in 84, passed in 84, and got my certificate and been board certified, every 5 years since then. Mm-hmm. And so.
Do you remember the names of any of the lawyers that were board certified along with you?
The only person that sat for the exam with me that I remember is Rob Stites, okay, from Fort Worth. Rob was there. I knew some board certified lawyers in family law in Fort Worth who were already board certified. Jim Loveless was already board certified. I think Steve King might have been. There were several already board certified, and I knew them all and had cases against them all. But at the time of my taking it, I know that Rob took it with me, and there were some others, but I don't remember really who they were anymore.
That's all right. What do you remember about the application? I know you found it. You found your original application getting ready for this.
Yes.
Would you tell us what that filling it out was like, what some of the requirements were, what you remember about it?
Well, I don't remember a lot, honestly, and so when we talked about doing this interview, since I never throw anything away, I said, you know what, I bet I can go find that thing. And so I did, on what we used to call legal size paper, and you had to put down some people who would be peer reviewed. I put down people that, you know, Randy Catterton, because he was a lawyer then, not a judge. He was a board certified family lawyer that I worked with some, and Bob Hoover from here in town, and Tom Vick from over in Weatherford, because I'd had a case with Tom and met him, and we'd become real close, and he was board certified. So I put him down, and put Mary Ellen Hicks. She was in the 231st District Court at that time, and then had some other people on here. Had Brian Carper, and was a judge at that time, and Robert L. Wright, Frank Sullivan, so on and so forth. There was some requirements to do that. You had to have jury trials, list how many jury trials you had, how many contested non-jury hearings, contested family matters. There was quite a few things like that you had to put on there. And of course your CLE, mm-hmm. List your CLE and your hours.
I thought something interesting in looking at the application was that you could also write into the board certification board and tell them about special qualifications that you might have instead of sitting for the exam. Do I take it that you probably did check all of the boxes for the requirements rather than writing in?
Yeah, I did. I checked all the requirements and then went and sat for the exam. It was easier that way. Luckily, I was a very good, I had a pretty good practice going, so I was busy. And it was like, it'll help me just to go and spend a day doing this, drive to Austin, take the exam, drive back, than it will spend a lot of time doing a lot of other things. I look down here at this thing and it says, since the date of my original application, how many family law matters have you participated in? And I've got 412 non-jury hearings in family law and 202 contested family law matters, so it's like I was doing a lot back in those days, so yeah.
Well, what do you remember about the exam itself?
I just remember it was like most exams I've ever taken. I thought it was hard, made me think, but I also thought it was pretty fair. We didn't cover all the subjects that I know are covered now in the board certification test, but you had to study, and what somebody had told me, was be sure and study whatever the recent statutory law was in family law. Whatever the legislature had passed, you better be ready to expound on that. And there were questions about that, and I just know that I had studied that. I was like all people who took it, probably, who practiced law and were practicing. I had these great designs that I was going to spend, take 2 or 3 days off and go to Austin, and really, really study hard. And I drove down the night before and got up and went and took it the next morning. I studied that night some, I have to admit, while I drank my 6-pack of beer. But other than that, and really, it was practical enough that if you'd just been doing it enough, you knew the family code. Of course, family code wasn't that thick those days. It was a little smaller. You knew most of the provisions anyway, so are the ones that really counted.
Do you remember what the format of the exam was?
It was mostly essay, but there were also some true, false, and multiple choice. Multiple guess, That's what I call it. But like I say, I thought it was a pretty fair test. I've never, been a great test taker. I would just wanted to pass, and I did. And actually, I made a higher grade on that than I did when I was in law school. So that was good because, of course, the subject was condensed. But yeah, it was good. It was a decent test.
Well, you mentioned that the family code back then wasn't, an inch and a half thick. It was just a little bit of that. When did all of that change?
Well, the family code was enacted in 72, and so I don't know that I had a code in 72. I'm sure I did. I'm sure West ran down there and published whatever we had, but I just remember that I'd been a member of Westlaw, as it was called in that day, forever, and pretty much that's where I got my code. And I was real fortunate that I met a high school friend of mine who was also a lawyer, named John Anthony Michael III, and we practiced together for a long time. And he had a friend, and I knew him too. I can't call his name right this second, but he was closing his office. He'd been practicing all his life, and he said, "Well, I got all these books over here. I know what people are doing today. I've got all these books over here." And he said, "You can come and get them, and the books and the shelves that go with them, I'll give them to you for $500. You just got to come and get them." So we went and got them, and they're out there in that hallway now. I still have them, because I told Chris, I said, "Okay, I don't need these things." He loves them, because when you're an appellate lawyer like he is, he can open several pages on a computer, but it's a lot easier if I've just got books laid everywhere and I can pick it up and I can do this. And so I've had those forever. So, but I'd always get a family code, whether it was from Westlaw when I had an account, or buy one at the advanced family law course, and just kept up with it. It was a long time before we even had an annotated one, but they were pretty small. I wish I'd have saved the first one I ever had, but I didn't. I think I may have one from 78 or something like that back there. So they were pretty small though.
Wow. Do you remember about how long it took you to get your board certification results? From the time you took the exam to the time you got the letter in the mail?
Yeah, I want to say I took it in December and I got it. I mean, I took it in September and I got them in December.
Okay.
I can actually check because I've got the letter from the. I remember because they, of course, sent it to me and misspelled my name.
Did they spell it Nickelson with an H?
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Yeah, I had to get that fixed. So.
Are you actually board certified, or is Gary
Yeah.
Nickelson
No, I
board certified?
I have checked on that because I thought that's what's going to happen. Nickelson
Yes,
is going to
Nicholson,
get
that's right.
It's going to get board certified, and I'm not. But yeah, I checked on that, and it is on my license. It's over there. It's NICK. I remember going back and explaining to them. Of course, everything I put out had my name spelled correctly on it, but they were able to screw it up. But let's see if I should. There we go. December 19th of 1984, I got a letter from John D. Roberts, who was at that time the executive director of the legal specialization place, and I got that letter in December, and I know I took it in September.
Okay. Did you know at the time, or did you ever find out who it was that was grading your exam?
Well, I knew who, later on, I knew who some of the graders were. They were colleagues of mine. I know that there used to be like, I want to say that I may get this wrong, but I want to say Scott Cook had a place down on the Frio River, and he and John Compere and trying to think of who else was in that group would go down there, and it's probably Jimmy Stewart, and they would all go down there and they would grade the exams. I mean, some of the premier family lawyers of the time. I didn't know any of them very well at that time. I got to meet all of them and know them all real well later, but I didn't know any of them. But I know that's who graded it, because that's what it came out, because they would talk about later on. I got sort of in the, if you will, inner circle of politics of everything, and I knew who they were, and I knew they would say, well, we're going to go grade the exams and this and that. So I know that they had a group, and it would change a little bit from time to time.
Mm-hmm.
That would grade them.
I want to shift gears a little bit and talk about TAFLS instead of the board certification exam. Do you remember when TAFLS was established?
No, I don't remember, because I was not really in the inside of that crowd. What I know is that there was some grumbling, if you will, about the Texas lawyers at that time, who were the bigwigs, wanted to get in the American Academy, and they wanted to have, I guess, a Texas chapter. And I don't know what happened. I'm not the person to ask. Probably Jimmy Lovelace might know. And but the Texas people, as we are wont to do, came back and said, oh, well, to hell with you. We're going to start our own organization. It's going to be called the Texas Academy of Family Law Specialists. And that's when it started and how it got going.
Mm-hmm.
And So I know that it was because of rejection of American Academy of either some of the lawyers in there or the idea that there was going to be Texas chapters, because I was not aware of any of that at the time. So.
Well, were you a member of TAFLS ever since you got board certified, or
Yes.
did you join TAFLS later?
No, I joined right when I got board certified, like in '84.
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure I was at the very first dinner that we ever had, and several of those early dinners were really interesting and really fun. Okay.
Now, was the first meeting in Las Vegas? Am I thinking of the right one?
You know, I don't know. I don't know if I was there or if it was there or not. It could have been.
What meetings stand out in your mind that you're willing to talk about on camera? And I'll tell you in advance that I've talked to Jim Lovelace already, and he's already told his side of the story.
I'm sure he has. Well, you know, we had some, like I say, every year the Texas Academy of Family Law Specialists would have a dinner. And, you know, dinners can be pretty stuffy affairs, but not with a bunch of liquored up lawyers like we all were back in the day. And I remember this one. Well, one of the ones that was memorable is that I think our speaker was Roxanne Pulitzer. She'd just been in Playboy. She was the centerfold, and she was a very prominent star at the time. And one of the people who was running the organization was friends with her. And so she came, and it was like having a Hollywood star. And I remember, I thought, well, this is interesting. I don't know what she's going to tell us all that would be interesting legally, but she really was a great personality, and we did have fun. And I know that some Fort Worth lawyers went over there and were smart enough to bring their Playboys and get her signature across her fold out.
I won't ask you which ones. We've been a member of TAFLS for 39 years. Can you tell us what you have gained from being a member of TAFLS?
Well, I always loved TAFLS. First off, I love the lawyers in there, and all is our friend Bill Coons, who just passed away here at 91. I would have taken bets on that. You know, he always said his best friends were lawyers, and his very best friends were family lawyers, and that was it. Family lawyers are a special breed. You have to be a special breed to practice this law. You have to have a sense of humor. You have to, you know, be a hard worker. You have to not take everything so seriously, and you've got to be very inventive about how you get cases resolved, whether they're a little case or a big case. And I love those people. All the people had great big personalities. I mean, when we got to have fun, we got to have fun. And the TAFLS people, I enjoyed very, very much. I meant to bring, but I didn't. But I'm happy to. I became really involved in TAFLS probably in the late 80s and the early 90s. And I loved going to the Trial Institute, okay? Because we always had fun. We had some sort of a program, and then we had, you know, a couple of days worth of seminars and everybody going out to eat and dinners, and it was fun. And the first one I don't remember the ones before this, particularly the Trial Institute, but Stuart Gagnon from Houston was the course director, and it was in New Orleans. And back in the day, we used to have two people ran it. We had a course director and a co-course director. May still be the same now. And Stuart picked me to be his co-course director, which I was honored to do. And we held it back in New Orleans again, and we just had a ball. We had more fun down there, and everybody had a good time, and that was always fun. Mm-hmm. And so then we somehow ended up getting stuck going to Reno for about 5 years in a row. I remember my deceased friend Brian Webb said he pretty much thought he knew every rock in Reno. He hated Reno. But we went there for about 5 years in a row. And so everywhere we went, whether it was Las Vegas, which we went a lot, New Orleans, whatever, it was always fun. I was the course director later on in Las Vegas, and everybody's sort of been my friends, if you will, have all been through the board and been, president of TAFLS, and it's a great honor. It's a great group of people.
We've talked a lot about TAFLS of the past and the bar as it used to be. What changes have you seen either in TAFLS, in the practice of law, or in the family law bar throughout your career?
Well, I think that there's a lot of changes going on now as we speak. I think a lot of that is fueled by the computer age, if you will. We have a lot of folks who believe they can, get a computer, look at the law. Now today, they don't even have to look at the law. They can get AI to look at the law for them and tell them what it says. But and I think there's a lot of shortcuts today, which doesn't make necessarily for better lawyers, but it just makes for more lawyers. And but I'm not one of those people that say, "Oh, all the old lawyers are really good and the new ones are bad." I just think it's changed the way. What we've done since probably the late 70s, early 80s, we've done everything we can to speed up the practice of family law. It's like baseball. Baseball takes too long, so we're going to put a time limit on everybody. Well, I remember when we got the very first fax machine. My partner was dying to have a fax machine. He said, we could just send these documents over to Dwayne's office, and it'd be there just like in an instant. I said, yeah. I said, that thing works the other way? And John looked at me and I said, that means Dwayne could send us stuff in an instant. And he kind of looked at me and I said, that's the problem with it. Okay. Whereas when I first started practicing law, I really was one of those lawyers that, nothing particularly happened till the mail came, unless you were in court. And then you would get your pleadings in the mail, you would get correspondence in the mail. And so everything was much slower. I'm not saying it's better, but it was just slower. Where today, you're going to get emails that people want you to answer today, instant messaging. I'm going to text you. Why aren't you responding to me on Saturday or Sunday? And that's the biggest change that I see, is we've speeded it up. Not only the lawyers, but the clients are the same way. If I give you something, have you read it? Well, I've got a couple other people that were here before you. No, I haven't read it yet, but I will. And so I think that's the biggest change that I see, just the speeding up of the whole process. And some of it's for much more for the better, and some of it probably not.
I've asked everybody that I've had the privilege of talking to in these interviews this question. In your, is that 52 years of practice? Going on 52 years.
Yeah.
What has been your most memorable case, and what did you learn from it?
I've been real lucky to have.
I know that's like asking you for your favorite grain of sand.
I've had so much fun practicing family law. Sometimes you just wonder, why you get paid to do it, because you can't make these stories up. There is no way. And I've had the honor to represent some really well-known figures and personalities and stuff like that, and that's a pleasure. Some of them are really nice and easy to get along with and normal people, and other ones you're glad when they go out the door and you don't get to have to see them anymore. But, you know, I don't know. My son being the civil lawyer, appellate lawyer that he is, I always told him, I said, I think I'm known for the cases I lost more than the cases I won. You know, I always go back to the Loiza case, which is a case of a baseball pitcher for the Rangers, and Judge Catterton and I had a real disagreement about his contract. And I represented his wife, and he had don't remember the years now, but a 10-year guaranteed contract. You got paid if he died. And so we got a divorce sort of in the middle of that 10 years, and I wanted her share of the 5 years beyond the divorce. And I said, well, if he gets paid no matter what, how can it not be community property when they signed it 5 years ago during the marriage, okay? And we only got to the Court of Appeals because the other lawyer was pretty smart, and he ran over and offered my client a bunch of money, and we settled. But I still think that case probably ought to have gone the other way in the courts, and it might have in the Supreme Court. I don't know that. You know, I've had some interesting, lots of factual questions like that, or legal questions like that. I had enjoyed in the last few years of my practice. You know, I always thought from day one that the way you be successful practicing law is you get fewer cases that are bigger. Big money, small cases, and then you're set. Well, I've changed my mind now. I had a couple of cases in the last few years that went 6 and 7 years, respectively. One with all kinds of money and one with none. And I made a decision along with my son on the one that had none. I said, we're just going to stay, you know, and just finance it out of our pockets as long as we can do it, and borrow money if we have to, blah, blah, blah. Both those cases turned out successful in the end, and they were a lot of fun. So I think really you get invested with the people, and I go back now and I think about the people that I represented and the questions that were involved and how much help family lawyers are. I mean, that's our whole job. You know, people say, why are you a family lawyer? Well, I like to help others. And these are people that they got problems, but they can't solve them. They couldn't solve them on a bet. But we can, because we can get in there and we can convince them to do things that they might not normally do and show them how it would benefit them. And we make them end up, you know, getting the case settled and either saving the marriage or not saving the marriage, or at least looking out for the children and getting it all done well. So it's been fun. It's been great. I don't know any other profession that you could go into and have as much fun as representing litigants in a family law case. I mean, the lawyers can sometimes be mean and nasty, and I've been up about a ton of them, but you know, I just laugh at them. I mean, you know, they're getting mean and nasty. I'm not getting upset, so I don't know who you think you're, you know, influencing here. Maybe your client, probably your client. So, but I think the practice has changed some. But you asked me a while ago about the bar. I think the bar has changed a lot. Some for the better, and some for worse.
Tell me about that.
Well, I just think I sat on the bar board of directors for 6 years, and I sat on it, I think, in between the years of where the bar was, you know, looked upon to be a great institution, helping all the lawyers of Texas, to then being attacked, if you will, for all the things that we do because, you know, we have our dues system. Well, you know, I've never been a member of an organization for 52 years and never had them increase dues for the last 25, and still do yeoman's work, unbelievable work. They have the best CLE in the world. And I can say that because I've been to New York CLE and California CLE and all these places in between, and it's not like our CLE. It's much, much lower on the scale of CLE. We were so fortunate to have Pat Nestor as the head of PDP, as they call it back in the day, now Texas Bar CLE. We actually went and got Pat out of retirement, made him do another stint, and I don't think he's coming back this time, but brought it to such a high level that when I would bring people from other states, I'd be the president of the American Academy, and I'd bring the academy down here for a meeting. And we would do it during, advance. And I'd take them, and I'd show them 2,000 people in an auditorium, and they'd say, "This is the meeting room?" Yeah. Took a guy from Reno there, one of my friends, Gary Silverman. He said, "We only got about 200 lawyers in Nevada." I said, "Well," and I went to his CLE too. So all I'm saying is, I don't think the bar gets the credit that they deserve for all the things they do. And it's a wonderful organization. And I encourage anybody who sees this, if you want to know what's going on, run for bar board of directors, get on the bar board. You will meet some wonderful lawyers from all over the state that don't practice what you practice, and you'll have a really great time, and you'll help the family law section and the family lawyers of the state, because you'll be our representative, and they'll see, wow, here's another family lawyer that is really a good person. So I think it's changed a lot. I hope it goes back to the way it was, in that everybody's out for the good of, bringing up the level of practice of law, but it's what it ought to be about.
Gary, we're going to have a lot of young lawyers watching this at the upcoming Advanced Family Law. If you could give one piece of advice to the young lawyers in Texas, what would that be?
Gosh, that's hard. I think the main thing is, if you want to be successful practicing law, most important thing you can do is be honest. Be honest with yourself. A lot of people don't do that. Be honest with your clients. We have a lot of clients that act out because the lawyer's not telling them what the truth is. And third, besides yourself and your clients, the other lawyer. I have these lawyers who tell me stuff that's not true, and I don't know if they think I'm just dumb and I'm never going to figure out it's not the truth. But we're all going to find out what the facts are at some point in time. So I think be true to yourself. Don't take on a case. I can't try the case like Dwayne Smith can. I can only try it like me. And if you're true to yourself and you're honest and you're always hold up your word. If you give your word, that's it. I got lawyers in town. If they gave me their word, I don't need anything. I'm fine. And most of them are not that way anymore. I think you need to be one of those lawyers known that if you say yes, it's yes. Because you're going to be the one, it's your law practice. It's not your client's law practice. It's your practice. So what do you want people to think of you 50 some odd years later? That you lied to them? You told them you'd do something, but you didn't do it? I had a mediation. This is tell you after 52 years what I've learned. I had a mediation the other day, and we had this one little ticky-tacky thing that needed to be done. And I said, you know what? I'll pay that $100. We get this done. And they all looked at me, and I said, are we through? Yeah. So my client came back to me, and he said, I'll pay that $100. It was my client that didn't want to pay the $100. And it was a little bitty thing out of a big estate. I said, no, you're not going to pay it. I'm going to pay it. And I sent my check over there. And I said, I gave you my word, and I gave that other lawyer my word. That's what was going to happen. So that's what's going to happen, period. And I just think those are the things that make this practice so wonderful is you got lawyers who will tell you, I'll do this. And you'll say, great, I don't have to worry about it anymore. I will move on. And that's what it's all about. You'll be successful if you don't lie and you keep your word and you do the things and you work hard. You know, that's what it takes. Other than that, it's really not all that hard.
Well, Gary, thank you. I really appreciate you sharing your thoughts and your experiences.
Well, thank you, right? I appreciate you.